Hello, welcome to our 1.6 video. So 1.6, hopefully you kept up with, you're keeping up with the homework and you did 1.5, which is solving equations. So here, 1.6 deals with solving formulas. So there isn't much of a difference as far as the process goes. The only thing that's different is that before you had a bunch of numbers and you had one variable like an x. Okay, so here a formula usually is made up of more than one variable. So what happens here is I'll be giving you a formula and asking you to solve for one of the variables that's in the formula. And again, the process for solving is still the same. You would still have to try to get the variable by itself, the variable that we're solving for. And the way you do that is by using your properties of equalities. Add something to both sides, or subtract something to both sides, or multiply both sides, or divide both sides. Okay, so let's take a look at this first example. So here's the formula. Okay, so just saying solve is not good enough. Okay, so when you have formulas like this, when you have more than one variable, it's important that that we state which variable we want you to solve for. So we need to say something like solve for D, or solve for R, or solve for T. So in this case, we're going to take this equation here, this formula, and we're going to solve it for T. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay. No like terms, so everything's simplified. Okay, so here we want to get the T by itself. And again, the whole process is still the same. So that's multiplication by R. You can think of R as a number, that's fine. So if that were a number, then we would have to divide by that number, right? Okay, so same thing here. It's just that number R is unknown, okay? But it still represents a number. So here, R over R is 1. Okay, so I get T by itself. That's what we want. And I get D divided by R on the other side. Okay, so these are really supposed to be a little easier than solving equations because there are no calculations that need to be done. You just do the process of adding to both sides. But there's really nothing to add because everything's a letter. Okay, so, or dividing on both sides, but there's really nothing to divide because everything is in terms of letters instead of numbers. So you just leave it. You leave it as D divided by R. Okay. All right, let's take a look at this one. Volume equals length times width times height. Okay, so there's your formula. And in this case, let's go ahead and solve for H. Solve for H. Okay, so I'm going to write down the formula down here. Okay, so I need to solve for H, and we see that H is being multiplied by LW. It's all multiplication. So the opposite of multiply is divide. So that's what I will do. Okay, I'm going to divide by LW. Divide by LW. So the L's and the W's cancel. And I'm left with H by itself. That's what we want, H by itself. And again, there are no numbers here, so you don't actually do the division. You just copy this down, V over L times W. Do you need the dot? No. LW is the same as L dot W. And that would be your final answer. Okay. Let's take a look at another one. Here's your formula. T equals W plus MA. Okay. And let's solve for W. Okay. So let me write it down here. All right, so we are solving for W, so we need to get the W by itself, right? So here's the W. So we need to get rid of this. This is being added, so the opposite of adding is subtracting. So I'm going to subtract MA, and they cancel out. And we're left with W by itself, which is what we want. And on the other side, we have T minus MA. Again, no numbers, so we just leave it. T minus MA. Okay. I want to do this one again, but in this case, let's take the same formula and let's solve for A. Okay. So let's write that down. Same formula. Solve for A. All right. All right, let me write it down here. T equals W plus MA. All right, so we have to get the A by itself. Okay, so we have to get this by itself. All right, so we're going to start by subtracting W on both sides. Subtract W, subtract W. So they cancel out here. So I get T minus W on the left-hand side. Again, we only have letters, so we can actually subtract them. So you just bring it down, T minus W. And on the right-hand side, I have MA. Okay. Again, you pretend that's a number. We're solving for A. Pretend that's a number. If that were a number, this is multiplication. So the opposite of multiply is divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by M. Okay. So that equals 1. So there we get the A by itself. And that's your goal. Whatever it is that you're trying to solve for, you're just trying to get it by itself. Okay. And we get the A by itself on the right-hand side. And again, we don't have any numbers, so we can't actually do the subtraction or the division. So we just leave it as T minus W divided by M. Okay. Very good. All right, let's take a look at this next one. Here's your formula. H equals 48T plus 1/2 AT squared. Solve for A. All right, so let's bring this formula down here so we can do all the work. Okay, so we have a mixture, a bunch of letters and a bunch of numbers. We're solving for A. Okay, so here's, this is the term, 1/2 AT squared. This is the term that has A, okay? And so we need to get rid of this one. So let's go ahead and cancel out this term. So this is positive 48t. So if I want to cancel it, I'm going to subtract 48t on both sides. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. They cancel out. Okay, now if you take a look on the left-hand side, h minus 48t. So you can't do that. They're not like terms, right? So you can't actually do this subtraction. So all you're going to do is bring all of this down. You're just going to write h minus 48t. Okay, so if you can't actually do the calculation, then all you have to do is bring it down. All right, over here, I'm going to bring down 1/2 AT squared. Okay, and now I need to solve for A. Okay, so I'm going to take care of the t squared first. Okay, so I'm going to take care of the t squared. This is multiplication, right? So this is multiplication. So I'm going to divide by t squared. Okay, so I'm going to divide by t squared. I'm going to divide this side by t squared. So here they cancel. Okay, and again, I can't actually do the calculation here on the left-hand side. I can't actually do that calculation, so I'm just going to bring all of that down. So h minus 48t all over t squared equals 1/2 a. All right, we're almost there. We almost have the a by itself. So here I have that fraction, so I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so I'm going to multiply this by the reciprocal, and that's what I'm going to do here. The reciprocal is 2 over 1. That's the same as just 2. Okay. All right, so the 2's cancel, 1's cancel. Okay, so here I'm left with, you can either leave it like this. Okay, so there's your answer for A. Okay, you can leave it like this. This is fine. Or if you want to distribute the 2, you can. Okay, so another way you could do this is write it as 2h minus 96t all over t squared equals A. Where's my A? There. Okay. So this one is a little bit longer, but again, it still deals with the same properties of equalities that you were using when you were solving equations that had a bunch of numbers and only one letter. Okay, so if you want to get that by itself, do the opposite. This is add, so this is subtract, 48t. This is multiplication, so you divide. Okay, you have that fraction multiplied by the reciprocal. Okay. And again, you won't be able to do a lot of those calculations. Oh, subtract 48t on both sides. You can't really do this, so just copy it. Divide by t squared. Well, you can't really do that because you have a bunch of letters and numbers here. So you can't actually do that division, so just bring it down. Okay. This is the only one where you could actually do the multiplication. So, but you could leave it like this, or you could do the distributive property. Okay. All right, let's take a look at this one. So here's your formula. L equals A plus n minus 1 times D. Solve for n. Okay, so I'm going to bring this down. That's supposed to be n minus 1. There it goes. N minus 1 D. Okay, so just like in the previous section, we want to do the distributive property first. Okay, so L equals A plus n times D. 1 times D is just D. Okay, and now we want to get the n. We're trying to solve for n, so we need to get this by itself. Okay, so let's do everything one at a time. I am going to start with the A. Okay, so I'm going to subtract A on both sides. Okay, you could add D to both sides first. That's fine. Okay, so I can't actually subtract L and A, so I'm just going to write it down. And on the right-hand side, I get ND minus D. Okay, trying to get the N by itself, trying to get this by itself, so I need to cancel this. This is subtract D, so the opposite is to add D. So I'm going to add D to both sides. Okay, so add D, they cancel out. And again, on the left-hand side, you can't actually do that addition with D. So just copy everything down. L minus A plus D. And on the right-hand side, we get N times D. All right, almost there. We almost have this N by itself. We need to do one more step. This is multiplication by D, so I need to divide by D. Okay, and again, we just have a bunch of letters there on the left-hand side, so we can't actually do the division. So let's just copy everything down. L minus A plus D all over D equals N. And there you have it. N is by itself. Okay. So some of you guys might be asking, oh, well, can't we cancel it here? Yes and no. You cannot cancel it if it's written like this, with one fraction bar. Okay. If you write them individually over D, L over D, A over D, D over D, then yes, you can cancel it. But if it's all of them, one fraction bar over D, then you cannot, because you would need all of them to have a D, and they do not. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. So if you write them individually over D like this, L over D minus A over D plus D over D. So if you do them individually, then yes, you can cancel here and you'll have 1 instead. Okay, so your answer would be L over D minus A over D plus 1. Okay, so that's how you can do it. Either one of these is fine. Okay. All right, I want you to try this next one on your own. Try this. Hit the pause button and work it out. AX. Ooh, this one's a really tricky one. I'll give you a hint. Solve for X. Okay, so here's a hint. See if you can rewrite this backwards with distributive property. Oops, what is that going to say? Okay, so try to see if you can rewrite the left-hand side with the distributive property. Okay, all right, go ahead and hit the pause button, think about it, and then come back. Okay, so what I meant was, okay, the left-hand side here, if I were to rewrite this, like if I wanted to know what was the step before this that had the distributive property, then it probably looked like this, right? That's what it looked like, okay? Because when I distribute the x, then I get this, ax plus bx. So that's what I meant by try to rewrite it with the distributive property. Okay, so there we have that. And now I can solve. That's a multiplication with x. So if that's multiplication, the opposite is divide. So I will divide by a plus b. Okay, so those cancel out. And I get x is equal to c over a plus b, because we can't actually do that division, right? If you can't actually do the calculation because you have all these letters, all you have to do is copy it down. You don't actually have to do it, okay? All right, so that is it. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me or message me through the Remind app. If you message me through the Remind app, I get back to you like immediately. If you email me, you might have to wait a day. All right. You guys have a nice day. I will see you next time.